It's our mock draft episode. We talk about snake drafting methodology, tips, and tricks, followed by the RotoBaller Industry Mock Draft. Ray Murphy of Baseball HQ drafts against us next on Beat the Shift. Welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me as always is Ruvain Guy. How are you, Ruvain?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. We've got a wonderful show for you planned today. A little bit different from our normal pace. It's going to be a mock draft, just to show you what we're thinking as we draft here. And to help us also, who's in this draft as well, Ray Murphy. Welcome to the show, Ray.
Hey, guys. Nice to talk to you this evening.
Likewise. Ray Murphy from Baseball HQ just had a fantastic First Pitch Florida online. I was a part of that, and thank you very much for having me. Fantastic job, Ray, on that.
Thanks. It came together probably about as well as we could have hoped. There's nothing like the live events, of course, but there were a remarkable amount of people showing a remarkable amount of patience and spending a remarkable amount of hours in front of Zoom last weekend. Kudos to everybody involved.
Absolutely. So we've got about 15 minutes before our draft gets started. This is the RotoBaller Industry Mock Draft. Thank you to the guys at RotoBaller for setting it up and inviting us to it. But let's talk a little bit about just general snake draft strategy as we go. Ray, let's start with you. Do you have a general strategy in mind? Do you have anything you do top of the draft, middle of the draft? I'm just going to leave it wide open for you to just talk.
I have preferences or sort of default positions that, depending on where I fall in the draft in terms of the draft order, how the draft unfolds, how my build goes, I sort of have a bunch of things that I expect to have happen or that I expect to try to do until I'm forced to pivot or change strategies. One thing that's been sort of interesting to me in my draft this year that actually holds true in this mock tonight is that I have been at the ends of the snake in just about every draft I've been in. I've had picks 1 and 2 and 13 and 14 and 15 in probably a total of like 9 out of 10 drafts this year. And in TGFBI last week, I got 9, which is the closest I've been to anything resembling the middle. But other than that, I've been playing an awful lot from the ends, which, as you know, sort of dictates some strategy, especially this year at the back of the snake, like I am in this 12-teamer tonight. You force yourself down a couple of paths pretty quickly, depending on what you're doing at the 1-2 turn.
Right. Ruvain, how about you? What is your general snake draft method and strategy?
Well, it also, just like Ray said, it depends where you fall in the starting of the draft. I like to get one of those big pitchers very early and also try to get some steals in one of the first 2 rounds also. So whatever's available when it comes to you, if you can get one of those top guys, you're lucky enough to have any picks like 1 through 4, that's fine. But I'm even willing to go a starting pitcher at number 3 or number 4, like DeGrom, because DeGrom pitched tonight. He faced 9 batters, 7 strikeouts, and hit 102 on the radar gun. So I think he's already in midseason form, and I have no problem taking him at first pick with my first pick in the first round if it's like, let's say, 3 or 4 or something like that.
Yeah. Before I get to my general strategy and stuff, in terms of KDS, you mentioned, Ray, that you've been on the wheels, the 1, 2, and the 13, 14, 15 down there. I very much prefer the middle, especially this year in drafts. Do you have the same thinking as me?
Yeah, I think if you let me have my choice of any draft slot, I would probably be looking at something like 3, 4, 5, 6 this year, probably like the early middle, if you will. I really like those top 5 hitters. I'm comfortable with all of them, but I would, I don't have such a difference between them that I am obsessed with getting Tatis and Acuna or whoever goes 1 and 2. I'm content to, take the quote unquote remains of that top tier of batters and then, have a slightly earlier pick in round 2 and round 3 and get off of the first pick wheel a little bit and move a little bit into the middle, but take that, pick it, in a 15-teamer, pick like 26 instead of 30. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, I'll give you a couple of different strategy points and methods that I do. First of all, my general method is replacement level drafting. I look at the different positions and I zone in on where the biggest drops are. If I see that there's a shortstop available and he is much bigger value than the next shortstop right after that or a couple down, that signals to me that if you don't grab that shortstop, he won't be there when he gets there, and you're going to lose a lot of value. But if there's some outfielders, and they're only about $1 or $2 auction-wise apart, I might be able to wait a little bit on that and snag them later. I always generate auction values for snake drafts, even if it's a snake draft and I'm not auctioning, just to see the tier values. I will say this year, in general, if you have a choice, tilt outfielder as opposed to the middle infield. Shortstop is one of the deepest positions this year. Long time coming from it where it used to not be. Outfield is a little bit less deep this year, so tilt outfield when possible. And early on in the draft, you want to tilt a little bit more towards batting average and runs, perhaps a little bit more towards steals as well. That is generally the way to do this. Also, be aware that low batting average power hitters are available later on. So again, tilt batting average runs early. I generally do not reach. I don't want a crazy reach on any player. If the player is so far out of value, I don't. And as far as power goes, it's a shallow league. In a shallow league, you need more power than you think. Homers are up in baseball. Don't say, there's power later. No, you need to bulk up on power. Everybody's doing it. One more point about ADP. In the first 4 to 6 rounds, I don't look at ADP. I take the guy who I think is the best value to build up my base. Not just value, but in terms of roster construction. But I ignore ADP. In rounds 7 through, let's say, 20, I don't use ADP as a be-all, end-all. I just use it to make sure I'm not taking a guy that I like super, super early. If the ADP of a guy is 11th round, I'm not going to take him in the 6th round. I'm going to wait a little bit longer so that I can get somebody else and pick up more value. After round 20, I do whatever the heck I want. I just grab the player I want. Grab upside guys. Don't wait for that. Ray, what is the difference between drafting in shallow versus deeper formats?
Yeah, there are a couple of things to be thinking about there. You had a couple of them in your sort of thumbnail guide there. In particular, I think it is a good point that in the shallower leagues, you need to get, your bases of counting stats in general are going to be higher, and that's, that can push players' values higher, or conversely, it can work the other way. In terms of the batting counting stats, like you said, you need to accumulate so much power while you're still chasing speed and batting average and runs, that you get to the point where in like this 12-teamer tonight, like any single-digit home run hitter that you draft is essentially costing you ground in the home run category, right? Because your average per position is probably higher than that. So if you take somebody who's going to steal 50 bases and hit 350, you're still, relatively speaking, losing ground in terms of power. On the flip side, the overrun pitching, and especially with saves, the value of closers actually decreases because, a little bit paradoxically, because you need so many saves to get to where you want to be in that category. And there are, nominally there are 30 closers available to 12 teams here. Of course, there aren't 30 named closers yet, or we may not want all 30 of them because their skills may be that bad. But as a result, each individual closer is moving you percentage-wise, not moving you as far toward your category target as they would in a deeper league where you might only need 1.5 or 2 closers to do well in the category. In this league, you need 2.5 or 3. So the incremental value of each individual closer actually goes down. I don't know if we'll see that in the way this draft plays out tonight, but I am less predisposed to chase saves in a 12-team league than I am in a 15-team league.
Right. Ruvain, anything to add about difference between shallow and deep?
Yeah, when you're drafting in a shallow league, you don't have to worry so much about a multi-position eligibility because you're going to get guys that fill the positions that shouldn't be a problem. When you're in a deeper league, you have to look for that because you're going to have injuries, and the waiver wire is not going to be as thick with players that can fill the range. Also, what I've noticed in deeper leagues already this year is that a lot of players are picking second and third and fourth possible save guys in bullpen. You're not going to have that. You're not going to need that in a shallow league, but in deeper leagues, you definitely have to do that this year because that just seems like the trend. Everyone is trying to get saves whenever they can. Everyone thinks they're smarter than everyone else. Who they know who's the closer is going to be in May when we don't even know who the closer is now. So when it comes to the shallow leagues, you can actually go a little more stars and scrubs. Don't have to worry about that as deep. But at the same point, you have to be aware of the whole nature and what's going on in the rest of the draft because if someone zigs, you may have to zig with them also. Otherwise, you'll end up with nothing.
Yeah, I'll add a couple things. First of all, starting pitching, if you're in a shallower league, there's better starting pitchers available on the waiver wire, so you don't have to overspend for pitchers. I know that people are saying pitchers are getting pushed up in draft. You don't have to enormously push it up in a shallower league because you can stream. You can stream and you can stream. Pitchers available in a 15-team league, not as good, but in 12 you can. So you should also push a little bit higher, stars and scrubs, if you can. Take one pitcher, wait, and really bulk up the hitting. Hitting and power are really more key to shallow leagues. Pitching, you can play a thinner base here because of the fact that you can stream. I will mention that this is a one-catcher league that we're doing, and it's shallow, so there's only going to be 12 catchers taken. That puts the replacement value much, much higher than in a two-catcher 15-team league where you need to somebody's going to grab the 30th best catcher. As such, you do not have to pick up a catcher. If JT Realmuto is available in the 5th, pass. There's no need to take him that early. In fact, you can take a catcher in the very, very last round of the draft, almost as a bench spot, and that's okay. I might be doing that unless there's a really great value that pops up. One thing I'd say, for pitching, tilt a little bit more towards ratios than strikeouts. Strikeouts can be more easily fixed on the waiver wire, and with streaming and with two-start pitchers, you do not have to grab that. So guys like Kyle Hendricks, Zach Greinke, they're worth a little bit more in this format as you go shallow. Ray, let's go to some early observations that you've had from 2021 drafts.
Yeah, so one strategy that seems to have taken the Twitter sphere by storm that I actually have experimented with a little bit, Brent and I are writing about it this week over at HQ, is the pocket aces strategy where you open your draft with two starting pitchers. It's not a strategy I would have even entertained as recently as a couple of years ago, but I think in certain circumstances it has some validity and it can be executed successfully. It's not to say it's for everybody. I think there's a certain mindset involved in it, but particularly with the way that starting pitching innings are being flattened this year, or we expect them to be flattened because of the coming off of the short season and all of the starting pitching workload concerns. The idea of grabbing two starting pitchers who are going to throw, and it may not even be 400 innings anymore. It may be 190 innings each or something like that, but who might give you 440 Ks and 380 innings is such an interesting start to your draft. And like you were saying, Ariel, that's there's some stuff that gets harder to replace later there. But you're really the theory being that you're pocketing not just two pitchers, but the value of like 2 1/4 pitchers or 2 1/3 pitchers because of the extra innings you get. There were a lot of people gravitating to that in the industry, and I'm not 100% sold on it, but I've taken at least a close enough look at it to think it's interesting. And I don't know if you guys have either tried an implementation of that yet.
Yeah, I don't fully believe in that, although I will say, though, that if everybody is pushing up pitching, it means that a higher percentage of their value on their team is pitching, and it's okay to tilt like that also. I mean, in general, in an auction, you want to be pretty much even with the rest of the group. If pitching is 70, if hitting is 70-30, you want to be around there. So if everybody's taking a lot of pitching early and that's a lot of value, that's okay too. I personally don't like the pocket aces strategy, but I do believe that you should have one pitcher in your first 3 rounds to solidify the whole thing. A couple things that I've noticed about the 2021 drafts is that hitters in the first round are really good. Jose Ramirez, Christian Yelich, really, really late in the first round. These are solid first-round players. Really, really, really deep in the first round. I'd say that relief pitching closers are going much later than usual. There's usually one closer round, probably around 6, 7, or even 8 these days. And a lot of people, I've noticed from TGFBI, a lot of people are taking these number 2 or 3 relief pitchers on each team. And you're basically intending to drop all these guys the very first week, and you're